Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, the only place on the internet where we always have something to say about your Toronto Blue Jays. I'm pumped to be here, you should be pumped to be here, and if you're new around these parts, welcome to the family, because brother, sister, you have picked the absolute perfect time to show up. Because right now, in the early days of March 2026, something is quietly, unmistakably, undeniably brewing down in Dunedin, Florida. And we are going to break it all down for you today. We're talking Dalton Varsho going absolutely nuclear in spring training. We're talking Addison Barger, a guy that a growing wave of analysts and hardcore fans are already calling their breakout player of the year, continuing to look like a bona fide star in the making. And then we're talking about everybody's favorite topic right now, Trey Yesich, the 22-year-old phenomenon, the World Series ghost, the future ace of this entire franchise, and why the Blue Jays keeping him on a slow leash right now might actually be the single smartest thing this organization has done in years. Before we get into it, do us a solid, smash that like button, tap that subscribe button, and drop a comment down below. Tell us what you think about this Blue Jays squad. Are they going all the way in 2026? We want to hear from you. Now let's get into it. Let's start with the man who has turned Dunedin into his personal batting cage, Dalton Varsho. And look, we know what you're going to say the second we bring up spring training numbers. We can already hear it in the comments. It's just spring training stats, they don't mean anything. Yeah. We know. We've been watching baseball long enough to know that spring training numbers are about as reliable as a weather forecast 3 weeks out. We are fully aware. But here's the thing. Context matters enormously. And the context surrounding Varsho right now is genuinely impossible to ignore. Through 10 spring training games, Dalton Varsho was hitting .400, going 10 for 25, with an OPS sitting at a jaw-dropping 1.164. That is not a blip. That is not one lucky week where everything fell in. That is a pattern. And before anyone starts waving the small sample size flag, and honestly, wave it, we respect it, that's smart baseball watching. Take a look at what happened the last time Varsho came into a season riding this kind of spring momentum. Last year, he played in just 71 games due to injury, collecting only around 248 to 271 plate appearances depending on how you count it. And in those brutally limited opportunities, he still mashed 20 home runs and posted a career-high .832 OPS. The easy math there is absolutely monstrous. You put him in 162 games at that production rate and you are staring down the barrel of a 40-home run center fielder. 40. From a guy who also plays Gold Glove caliber defense in center field. Do you understand how rare that combination is in modern baseball? That profile doesn't just make you a good player. That profile makes you a superstar. And here's why this spring is different from other springs, and why you should actually lean in and pay attention to what's happening mechanically with Varsho's bat right now. The whole conversation in Dunedin has been about his approach at the plate. This idea that he is deliberately, consciously trying to hit the ball into the ground. Which sounds completely backwards, right? Like, why would a power hitter be thinking ground ball? Shouldn't he be hunting loft, hunting launch angle, trying to get everything elevated and into the air? Well, here's the beautiful genius of it. Varsho's natural swing path already has loft built into it. He has that gorgeous, natural upswing that generates lift automatically without him thinking about it. So when he consciously focuses on staying down on the ball, as the camp narrative has gone all spring, chopping wood, he is actually creating backspin. He is getting into the hitting zone early. He is generating ridiculous exit velocity. And the ball flies anyway. You aim down to go up. There is almost a zen quality to it honestly. It is counterintuitive in the best possible way. What is different this year compared to every previous year is that Varsho himself seems to genuinely understand why he is doing it. Not just mechanically executing what his hitting coach told him to do, not just going through the motions of a spring training adjustment, but actually internalizing the philosophy and connecting cause and effect in real time at the plate. When a hitter reaches that level of self-awareness, when he stops guessing and starts knowing, that is when you see consistency emerge. That is when you stop watching a player who is brilliant for 2 months and then invisible for the next 2. That is when you start watching a guy who can sustain a level of production over a full 162-game schedule. And for the first time in his Blue Jays career, there is genuine reason to believe Varsho is in that place mentally and mechanically. Now, 162 games is exactly the question mark that has always hovered over Dalton Varsho's head like a storm cloud. He is 29 years old. He plays center field like a man who is actively trying to prove something to every scout who ever doubted him. He flings himself at walls at Rogers Center, and if you have ever been up in the outfield seats at the Rogers Center, you know that wall is not cushioned by some gentle foam padding. When Varsho hits that wall at full sprint, you hear it from the upper deck. You feel it in your chest. He plays with a physical recklessness that is genuinely beautiful to watch and absolutely terrifying for any Blue Jays fan who has memorized his injury history. The turf at Rogers Center doesn't help either. Diving on artificial turf, sprinting and cutting on that surface game after game for 81 home games, it takes a toll on a body that was not built to absorb those kinds of repetitive impacts the way a grass field might forgive them. But here is the other side of that coin. This is a contract year for Dalton Varsho. He signed a one-year deal to avoid arbitration for 2026, and he becomes a free agent after this season. That kind of information does something to a professional athlete. It sharpens everything. It focuses the mind in ways that no coaching staff or motivational speech ever could. Every at-bat has dollars attached to it. Every game he stays healthy is a game that builds his market value heading into the winter. That is motivational jet fuel of the highest octane. And if Varsho can stay healthy and reproduce what he showed in that limited 2025 sample across a full season, we are talking 30 home runs minimum, Gold Glove defense, and a WAR that puts him in the conversation for one of the top position players in the entire American League. Do the math on his 2025 production extrapolated over 162 games. You are looking at a 6 WAR player. 6. That puts him in rarefied air alongside the Aaron Judges of the world in terms of all-around value. The Blue Jays are going to look at that in October and pay this man handsomely, and they absolutely should. The bottom line on Varsho is this. The power that everybody always knew was there, the reason they traded for him in the first place, the reason the whole narrative was always that Rogers Center's short right field porch was built specifically for his left-handed pull swing, that power is now clicking into place in a real and sustainable way. He has the mechanics. He has the motivation. He has the track record from last season to believe in. And this spring training has done nothing but pour gasoline on a fire that was already burning. It is the highest anyone should reasonably have been on Dalton Varsho in his entire time as a Blue Jay. And that is saying something. Now let's talk about another lefty bat who is giving Blue Jays fans serious, legitimate, non-manufactured reasons for excitement, and that is the electric and explosive Addison Barger. Barger came into spring training already riding a wave of enormous hype. We are talking about a 26-year-old who just completed his first full major league season in 2025, posting a .243 batting average, a .301 on-base percentage, a .454 slugging percentage, 21 home runs, and 74 RBIs across 135 games. Those numbers alone would represent a genuinely solid first full season for any young player stepping into a starting role. But anyone who actually watched this guy throughout last season knows the real story is far more exciting than those top-line numbers suggest. Addison Barger does not just hit baseballs. He assaults them. He has elite bat speed. We are talking 93rd percentile across major league hitters. He generates the kind of exit velocity on contact that has scouts reaching for superlatives. He has a cannon for an arm in the outfield that has produced some of the hardest tracked throws in the StatCast era. And then, and this is the part that lit up front offices and analysts across the entire sport, he went into the postseason and was absolutely devastating to opposing pitching. In the playoffs, he hit over .360. In the World Series specifically, he had 5 consecutive multi-hit games. He was undeniable on the biggest stage. He was the best hitter in the Fall Classic for stretches. That is not a coincidence. That is not luck. That is a player discovering who he is when the lights are brightest. And now here comes 2026, and the conversation around Barger has elevated significantly. Multiple respected voices in the baseball media world have named him as one of their top breakout candidates of the year. The comparison being thrown around most frequently is to the kind of aggressive, high exit velocity, hard contact profile that makes pitchers' lives an absolute nightmare, the kind of hitter who can hurt you in any count, in any situation, from either side of the plate. Former teammates who played beside him every day have spoken glowingly about his talent in terms that go well beyond polite locker room compliments. This is a guy who is genuinely respected by his peers as one of the most dangerous young hitters in the game. This spring, Barger has continued building on that momentum in ways that are exciting on multiple levels. He is flashing power, big, loud, embarrassing power. There have been reports out of Dunedin of home runs hit to distances and locations that make coaches stop and stare. He has also done something new and deeply significant, started showing the ability to drive the ball to the opposite field with authority against left-handed pitching, which is something that had not consistently shown up in his game before this spring. You want to talk about a development that could elevate a hitter's ceiling? That is exactly it. When a left-handed power hitter can go the other way with authority, suddenly pitchers cannot simply shift all their resources to one side of the field. Suddenly there is no safe zone. Suddenly every pitch location is dangerous. That is a massive leap in offensive capability. But here is the one area of development that could legitimately be the difference between Barger being a very good player and being a genuine star, and that is his walk rate. In 2025, his on-base percentage sat only about 58 points above his batting average. For context, the truly elite power threats in this league tend to have that gap at 70, 80, sometimes 90 points, because pitchers start working around them carefully, offering junk off the edges, and the great hitters have the patience and discipline to lay off the garbage and take their base. Barger, with his naturally aggressive approach and tendency to chase pitches on the corners, has not always had that discipline. But this spring, small sample size fully acknowledged, he has already drawn 5 walks. He is showing a willingness to take his base rather than swing at a pitcher's pitch. He is showing the patience that suggests he understands not every at-bat needs to end with a home run swing. If that discipline carries over into the regular season in a meaningful way, you have got a hitter who could push his OPS into the .850, maybe even .900 range. A left-handed hitter doing that in the middle of the Blue Jays lineup changes the entire complexion of this offense. What makes Barger's evolution so compelling as a narrative is the adjustment story at the heart of it. In 2025, pitchers figured him out around August and September. They started going away with breaking balls consistently, taking away the inner half fastball that had been his bread and butter early in the year, and he struggled. And then October happened. The biggest games of the year. The World Series. And Barger made the adjustment in real time, on the biggest stage imaginable, against the best pitching in the sport. He showed the patience to take 6 consecutive non-fastballs in crucial at-bats. He got his hits when they mattered most. He earned his degree from the University of Postseason Baseball in about 3 weeks of October baseball. That is a player who can adapt. That is a player who learns. In baseball, in any sport really, that is everything. With some key pieces of last year's lineup now elsewhere or dealing with injury questions entering 2026, the Blue Jays genuinely need Barger to step into a larger offensive role and deliver. And the remarkable thing is that he appears not just ready for that responsibility but actively hungry for it. No hedging. No managing expectations. Just a young man who went to the World Series last year, fell 1 win short, and wants to go back and finish the job. That energy is contagious in a clubhouse. That energy wins games in September when everything is tight. And now, the conversation that keeps Blue Jays fans awake at night, refreshing their phones for updates, debating in comment sections from Toronto to Dunedin and back. Let's talk about Trey Yesich. Where do you even begin with this kid? He is 22 years old. He spent 2025 absolutely dismantling minor league hitters at every level of the Blue Jays system with a combination of stuff and command that had scouts using words they usually reserve for once-in-a-decade talents. He made just a handful of regular season major league appearances before the playoffs started. And then, in the biggest games on the biggest stage in the sport, Trey Yesich looked like the second coming of an ace. He was otherworldly against the Yankees in the ALDS. He was sensational in the World Series against the Dodgers. He peaked at 105 pitches in a Fall Classic start and looked like he could have kept going. 2 years ago this young man was in college. Read that sentence again. 2 years ago he was in college. And now he just competed in a World Series and was one of the best pitchers on either roster. So now it is March 2026, spring training is rolling, and Blue Jays fans are understandably losing their minds waiting to see this guy take the mound in a competitive game. And the update we have is that Yesich threw 35 pitches over 2 innings to Blue Jays minor leaguers at the complex, in a controlled setting, carefully monitored. He said afterward that he was happy just to be back out there. That it felt good to play baseball again. And reading between the lines of that quote, you can feel the eagerness radiating off every word. You can feel a young pitcher champing at the bit, wanting to cut loose, wanting to be in the middle of everything. The plan from the organization is to ramp him up methodically, 2 innings here, build toward a minor league camp appearance, expand the workload gradually before any conversation about a big league role even begins. Now here is where the Blue Jays are going to test the patience of their entire fan base, and where, honestly, they might simultaneously be making the single wisest decision in franchise history. There is a very real, very credible chance that Trey Yesich does not break camp with the big league team on opening day at the end of March. Before you throw your phone across the room, before you close this video out of frustration, just hear the case out. Because the reasons are actually quite compelling once you get past the initial emotional reaction of wanting to see him on the mound immediately. First and most importantly, the workload management situation is real, it is science-based, and it is non-negotiable for this organization. Yesich threw somewhere in the range of 130 to 140 innings in 2025 across all levels, including the postseason. That was already a meaningful jump for a young arm that was on strict pitch limits throughout the minor league season. The Blue Jays were meticulous about this all of last year. They limited his outings at every single level, they used careful piggyback arrangements to protect his arm early in games, they never pushed him beyond his limits even when it was obvious he had more in the tank. And it worked perfectly. He stayed healthy the entire year. He was available and sharp for October when the games meant everything. The system that protected him in 2025 needs to be honored and extended into 2026, not abandoned the second there is post-season hype and fan pressure to see him every 5th day. Second, the roster situation actually gives the Blue Jays genuine cover to be patient here, and they would be foolish not to use it. Look at that starting rotation. Kevin Gausman is back. Dylan Cease is there. Jose Barrios when healthy. And Max Scherzer, Mad Max himself, back for another run at a ring at 41 years old, already drawing raves from everyone who has watched him throw this spring. That is a legitimate 4-man core of experienced, battle-tested major league starters. There is no emergency. There is no hole that requires rushing a 22-year-old's development for the sake of April games against bottom-of-the-barrel competition. The luxury of depth is precious in baseball. Use it. Third, and this is the chess move that really makes the front office's wheels turn, there is the service time calculation. This is the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playbook, chapter and verse, playing out all over again. Remember when Vlad Jr. was the most hyped position player prospect in baseball and the Blue Jays kept him in AAA just a little bit longer than seemed strictly necessary? There was always that wink and a nod from people in the know that service time was a factor in that decision. If Yesich starts the season in the minors and is called up in May rather than on opening day, the Blue Jays potentially retain an additional full year of team control, potentially keeping him under club control all the way through 2032. Is it ethically complex? Sure. Does it happen throughout professional baseball as a standard roster management tool? Absolutely and constantly. And when you are talking about the pitcher who could be your franchise cornerstone for the next decade, an extra year of control is worth more than we can reasonably calculate right now. The beautiful thing about this whole situation is that delaying the gratification by 4 to 6 weeks does not reduce the total value Yesich brings in 2026 by any meaningful measure. If anything, it enhances the overall picture. You bring him up in May when his arm is properly built up and his pitch count has been expanded responsibly. You let him throw real innings through the regular season without any need to shut him down prematurely in August or September. You have him fully sharp, fully built up, and fully ready for another October run when the games start to matter most. And you get an extra year on the back end of his contract to enjoy what this man